All right, my friends, welcome back to another fantastic episode of Mental Capital. Today, joining me live via satellite from Italy is the wonderful Kirra Pendergast. Kirra, thank you so much for being here today.
My absolute pleasure.
My goodness, we have got some incredible things to talk about. But before we do that, we have to start every show like we do and remind you all that no matter where you are right now in the world, okay, no matter what you have going on or life has handed you in this moment, always remember you are enough and you matter just the way you are. If you can hear the sound of our voice and see these lovely faces, you are blessed, chosen, and highly favored, and you deserve happiness and success above all things. So let's start there. I think
Perfect.
that's a good way to get
Perfect.
it started, right?
It is. It is.
Oh my goodness. Now, Kira is the founder of Safe on Social. She's a principal consultant and an international expert speaker. How long have you been helping people?
Oh dear. It's a very, very long time. I started my career back in 1991, and it's always been human-centered technology. So I guess I've always had a hand in where I am now, but this
Mhm.
really accelerated in about 2008 with the onset of Facebook and things like that.
Yes. Oh my goodness. It was like when the world changed again. We thought the internet was a huge explosion, and then we got social media, and that just took things to the highest level, right?
That's absolutely right. Yeah, yeah,
My
yeah.
goodness. And so you started in, I did some reading here. It said you started in cybersecurity. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, I did. I started in cryptography.
Hmm.
Was my main work day, so to speak. So as a consultant, and I worked on projects like in Australia, the whole of Queensland government identity and access management projects, all of their different two-factor authentication projects and things like that back then.
Excellent. Excellent. And then, um, you know, I would love to touch a little bit on some of the dangers of social media. That is kind of it for me. It feels as though I know for a lot of people, it feels almost like a new frontier, right?
Mm.
With the way these apps are evolving, with the way that you're seeing content shorter and shorter and shorter these days to shorten our attention spans. I remember when long form videos on YouTube first became popular, and it seems like now everything you consume is either 30 to 60 seconds in a clip. And I would just love to touch on some of the things that parents maybe might not know about the dangers of social media for themselves and their children.
Look, there's always obviously the stranger danger, but there's also the amount of information that we give away on social media that people just don't even think about. I was chatting to my son about that today. You know, he's 28, he's got a real interest in this, like in the security space. And the amount
Hmm.
of things that people give away, like the example I always use when I'm speaking to parent conferences, which I do a lot of, um, is thinking about when you're sharing a photo of your child on social media. Okay, so say for example, you
Hmm.
were sharing a photo of your child and you didn't think about how's an easy way to put this? I'll put it in a real life example. How about that? So,
Please.
to test this, I pulled up outside one of Sydney's most prestigious girls' schools one
Okay.
afternoon that I was about to speak at. And I did a little search on Instagram for like the map where you could tag in where a photo had been taken.
Hmm.
And I had, within 30 seconds, had a photo up of a little girl in her school uniform, and underneath it, it had hashtag first day of grade six. Okay. And then from that one photo, I could see her mother's whole Instagram account. Her mother was a real estate agent in Double Bay, which is just down the road from this school. They'd gotten
Hmm.
a new puppy during COVID. Its name was Harvey Snickers. They'd been on holidays in Hawaii where this little girl, whose name's Zara, learned to surf. They had recently had her, like, they had photos up of her 10th birthday and I'm so proud of you, darling, and all of this kind of stuff. So I could track about what age she was. I also knew she did hip hop lessons every Wednesday afternoon, and those days she was allowed to walk down to her mother's office, which was about 500 minutes down the hill from the school. I could also see her mother's name, and that her mum, as I said, was a real estate agent in a nearby part of Sydney. I could also see that they were in the snow in Perisher Valley in 2019. And when she was really, really little, she was in the Surf Life Saving Club, what we call the Nippers in Australia.
Okay.
And so if you take all of that, that's just one mum's Instagram account. So within 60 seconds, if I was the worst nightmare person that you think about with regards to child safety, I could literally walk up to the gate and just wait near the gate at around 5:30 on a Wednesday afternoon when Zara finished hip hop lessons and say, Zara, darling, Harvey Snickers has been injured. Mummy's had to take him to the vet, so she asked me to come and pick you up. And if that little girl said to me, how do you know my mum? I could say, oh, don't you remember me? We've been friends since you were in the Nippers with my kids. We were all on holidays together in Hawaii a few years ago. Did you have fun in the snow? 60 seconds, just like that. So they're the
Oh,
kind of things that we talk to parents about. It's not what app is dangerous, it's the collective total of how we're using it. So it's like
right.
I could do a pull, like literally anyone who is on Pinterest, who I've got their full name, I could go and search and do a full personality analysis based on what they're saving to their Pinterest boards. If they're not set to private. And now that you've got things like AI, I could literally take full screenshots and drop it into ChatGPT and say, tell me what kind of personality this person is. Done.
Oh, really? You can use ChatGPT for that function?
100%. Done it.
Wow. I, listen, I have to say that is startling. That is that is
Oh, we haven't even
absolutely startling.
started yet.
Yeah. Wow, that took my breath away
Yeah, it's
to
crazy.
hear that is something. And that's the crazy part. That mom probably has no awareness of that. She probably, it's not, her intent is to just showcase the world, if you look at
Proud
Instagram, right,
parent,
for example.
proud parent,
Yeah,
proud parent
absolutely.
syndrome.
She's a proud parent syndrome, they, you just want to show the world what you're proud of. And now Instagram has become a window into our lives. Social media has become an opportunity for people to peer through the window, maybe not even on the other side of the glass anymore, and
100%.
see everything that they want to see.
100%. It's everything is there. People can't help it. That's the
Right.
thing. The human ego
Hmm.
is gigantic. Everyone wants to
Yes.
show, and now we've got a platform to outlife each other. It becomes really, really damaging. It really
Yes.
does. You compare yourself
Yes.
to a life that doesn't exist because it's completely edited. It's
Right.
the it's the show reel.
The new Keeping Up with the Joneses, right? And the one thing that that I have talked about with so many of my guests around this topic is that Facebook, Instagram, social media, it's all curated. It's highlights. You rarely see the bad things. You rarely see what's happening behind the scenes. You rarely see the reality that most
That's
of us
right.
live in, right? Because through filters, and all of these other new features on these apps, um, your life almost isn't good enough now if it doesn't look perfect on social media. And I feel like everyone is just falling into that trap.
Oh, 100%. Like I use my Instagram as a great big walking, talking case study because I live in Europe. I work in Australia. I'm,
Hmm.
my Instagram account looks like I lead this unbelievably glamorous life, not 150 nights a year in a beige hotel room by myself, 15,000 kilometers from my partner and my puppy dog. It's not real.
No, it's not. And we've been lulled into this false sense of confidence almost that it really is. And that when you see, that's one of the more damaging things, I think, is when you look at someone else's life, you look at someone else's, Instagram, their social media, and you see them on vacation or you see them doing all these fun things. And again, you don't think of the 150 days that they're sitting in that beige hotel away from everybody, just, on a quiet night in front of a television. All you think of is, wow, she's traveling. Because I looked through your Instagram and I thought, man, she's motoring all around the world, isn't she?
Oh, look, mine's crazy because for a big part of my life, my love job, as I call it, like even though I love what I do, my creative life was massive. I was a music photographer on at music festivals, so I've been on stage with some of the biggest bands in the world. So that combo deal of being on stage with everyone from the Blind Boys of Alabama through to Tom Jones and you name it,
Oh,
taking
yeah.
photographs, that everything from being able to photograph those people, whether it's on stage or in the media pit, I had a front row seat, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like that is not reality, because even though it looks amazing, what's not seen is I was covered in mosquito bites. I was up to my ankles in mud. I was tired. It was cold. My
Right.
neck is aching from carrying, 16 kilograms of camera gear. It's just a great big, yeah, I won't say
Yeah.
it without swearing.
Please feel free to speak freely here. There's no, if it comes out, it comes out, judgment free. I have
Oh,
similar
funny.
feelings, honestly, about it, right? Because it's just the way it affects people. Um, this leads me to ask the question. So with some of, we've touched on just some of the dangers, but what are some ways that parents can be more vigilant? Around their usage, around their children's usage, just maybe basic tips that everyone can apply to their life.
Yeah, mindfulness is the first one. I think if you're using a phone around a child, show them what you're doing. Show them that it's
Hmm.
a tool. I'm just ordering your school lunch. I'm just paying the phone bill. Like, so, because your children think you're on TikTok.
Yes.
It's being mindful about the usage, being present with your children. An example I always use is I saw a dad on the beach in my hometown. I'm from a little seaside town in Australia called Byron Bay, which has become mega famous because that's where Chris Hemsworth lives. So it's
Yep.
always, you know, they're all there all the time.
Yeah.
The Matt Damons and everybody else of the world comes to say hello as well. But I
Right.
saw a man walking down the beach on his phone with his 2-year-old, like grabbing at him, trying to show him things and stuff like that. You see that all the time. It's like, mate, put your phone away for a second. I found myself
Right.
doing it. My mom hasn't been well, and I lost my dad in March. And so when I was in Australia last time, I was so busy because I was speaking every single
Hmm.
day for 5 weeks. And at one
Right.
point, mum's asking me all of these questions, like if I want to go to the beach, if we could walk around the backyard, because she wanted to pick some frangipanis and like all the stuff that you do when you're early onset Alzheimer's and things like
Right.
that.
Right.
And I'm like, just in a minute, mum, in a minute, in a minute. And I'm like realizing I'm checking my email on my phone, not engaging with my mum. And so it's really important to be present because you
Hmm.
can't get that time back, and nothing is
Right.
worth it. Like, I've taken email off my phone. I just can't until I sit down and actually purposefully open up my laptop. So those
That's
kinds of
brilliant.
tips and taking control, because I think we often forget that we get to choose how we consume technology, and technology
Yes.
shouldn't be consuming us. Like, in Australia, they just passed a law which is the right to disconnect. So it's actually illegal for your boss to demand that you respond to an email after your work hours in Australia. We've got all of
Incredible.
these things in place, so it's there's that. And then the other thing from a parenting point of view is to create a safe space for your kids to speak up. They are going to see shit, all of it,
Yeah.
everything you
Yeah.
can possibly imagine. The minute you hand your child a phone, they have access to the world and the world has access to them. Keep it out of the bedroom, point blank, forever. All the bad stuff happens in the bedroom, or if they're a bit older, they're only allowed to have their device in the bedroom if the door is open. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's it's important that we do that. But, making space for them to speak up is the best thing that you can do as a parent. A friend of mine, like, I have a big technology background, but a friend of mine who is literally crowned Australia's Queen of Common Sense, her name is Maggie Dent. She's an incredible parenting expert, mother of 4 boys or grown men now. And Maggie will always say, if you have a child in the car and they're talking about stuff, keep driving. Take the wrong way home, go through every drive-through food outlet you could possibly find, and just keep them talking. It's the same analogy as if your child falls over and hits their head. If they're screaming, they're okay. If they go silent, you need to be worried. And we need to treat the online world like that because it's getting more complex as we step into metaverses and fediverses and all of the things.
Oh, things we're definitely not ready for. We weren't ready for this, so we're definitely not ready for the
Well,
next version.
it's been around for 17 years now. Can you believe that? So it's like, or longer,
Madness.
20 actually, 20 I think it is now. But we often forget that those kids that were the first generation of not ever having privacy
Hmm.
have literally been online since they were ultrasound photograph,
Yeah, yes. Oh man, I remember creating my Facebook for the first time, and like after I'd created it being like, you set a status and somebody likes it. And I remember that dopamine hit sitting at my friend's computer, and I looked at him and was like, this is going to be a problem. This is going to be a problem, right? And here we are now. It's in the palm of your hand. Everything you do, they're pushing you ads through social media. They're collecting your data to determine who you are based on what you like, the pages that you like, or the websites that you visit. My God, the
It's
fact that
your
it
eye
gets,
movement.
yes, I was going to say your eye movement. Oh, wha-
Your eye movement. They say now that the average 13-year-old, by the time they're 13, because of the whopping digital footprint that a parent has created for them, with the photos of them growing up and birthday parties and all of those sorts of things, by the time a child is 13 now, there's an average of about 72 million data points on them strewn all over the internet.
oh.
Digital footprint is a massive, massive, massive thing.
72 million. 72 million. I always want to say that one more time. By the time they're 13, 72 million data points.
Yeah. And a lot of them, as I was saying before, with that little girl, the case study I mentioned,
Right.
if you take all of the information that I got of her mother's Instagram account, now that little girl, that was about 5 or 6 years ago, so there's a good chance, she's around 16 now.
Mm-hmm.
She would have her first job, she would have her own bank account,
Yep.
and because I know her name, it wouldn't take me much to reset the passwords on her bank account because they're often, where did you go to primary school? What was the name of your first pet? What was your mother's maiden name? Everything I could get straight off her mother's Instagram account.
Right. And you can just try and plug away until you find something. And again, as one success in that type of thing just motivates further inquiry down that line. You had mentioned something, and this is something that myself and a few of my friends, close friends and family, have done recently with having children type of deal. We've all had conversations about we're not going to post photos of our children on the internet. We're not going to
See me
post photos
clapping.
of our children on the internet. Yes. Oh, yes,
Yeah, don't.
exactly. Right. Thank you. Yeah, I have been a massive proponent of that to anyone who would be willing to listen because, like I said, once it's there forever.
That's
And you
right.
don't
And
know, and you don't know who can grab it, take it, and manipulate it for their own uses any which way whatsoever. And you think about all of the, right, the worst possible person on the internet. What are they going to do with that photo that you've posted of your lovely little 7-year-old daughter that you're just proud of her and you want to show the world what she looks like? But they don't have any positive intent in their body.
no, they don't. And they can manipulate it with deepfake technology and put that little face on whatever they want.
Ugh, horrific.
It's,
And a
yeah.
parent's worst nightmare. An
Yeah.
absolute worst nightmare,
And
you know?
sometimes it's a friend of the parent. So it's not just about privacy settings.
Right. It's about who's in your immediate sphere. And the other thing too is not only do, they always say, right, you think you know someone, right? You definitely don't have any idea who someone is online because the one thing, well, something that is very noticeable is, it's kind of like when people drive in their cars, right? You're in your bubble. And
Mm-hmm.
whatever you say while you're in your bubble behind your keyboard or behind your phone, you feel invincible because
Mm-hmm.
you could just disappear back into the reaches of the internet somewhere across the wide world and no one will ever see you again. Or you can delete your accounts and change your username and move everything around. And all of a sudden it was like you never existed, like you're a ghost. Not to mention the use of VPNs, the use of IPs that aren't trackable, all different things like that. It really has become something where the risk really outweighs the reward a million to one.
Oh, that's right. And as we become like we're really galloping into a like a what we call a Fediverse, which is a decentralized internet. So social media is going to get trickier because as sites pop up, if someone shuts them down, they'll just pop up and they'll shut them down and they'll pop up. Like email is Fediverse. It's the technology that allows you to use any platform but still communicate. So you can use any kind of email platform and send an email to another person. So that whole decentralization of the internet, whilst there are some great things because we won't be all sitting under the Musk, Zuckerberg overlords of the world,
Right.
Spiegels and co.
Right. Uh-huh.
But with that comes great risk. So as a parent, it is really important to raise good humans that understand ethics and integrity and to when to call out something that's not right.
Right. Not be afraid to do that, right? And not be afraid
To
to
be
to
safe, to be
yes,
safe but not afraid, and to know the
exactly.
difference.
Right, which is a lovely segue into Safe on Social. I would love to touch a bit on Safe on Social. So you are the founder. Um, would you please enlighten everyone here as to just exactly what Safe on Social is and what it's all about?
We are a company that specializes in education and training around cyber safety, social media risk management. I consult in that for businesses, top to bottom, end to end. We do anti cyberbullying education and full blown frameworks for businesses so that they can make sure everyone from the C suite to whoever is up to speed around everything from how the company aligns with the international standard ISO 45003, which is psychological injury in the workplace, mental health and well-being, what to do when things go pear-shaped, what it all looks like, how to fix it, reputation management, all of the things. I do policy. It's expanded. Like it has a very unique background, put it that way, in this sector. Because
Right.
if you want me to go into why I started it, it's
Please.
yeah. Well, I had spent 18 years as a senior consultant working in the cybersecurity sector in Australia. So I was
Hmm.
very well known in my field because there wasn't many women in my field back then. There was only a handful of us. So I did a lot of work with the Queensland government on some really big projects in Australia. And then I got asked by the Queensland government's CIO's Council, the Chief Information Officers, if I could come and present on this new thing called Facebook and whether the government should use
Hmm.
it to disseminate information about health and emergency services like public health, all of those kinds of things.
Right.
And so I said, okay. And I presented and did that because I'd been an early adopter. And within about 2 weeks of that presentation, I had so much work with these organizations wanting me to write their policy for them that I actually quit my job as the state director of a big, massive international firm called Capgemini and started my own consulting firm, which was like the first iteration of Safe on Social. Um,
Wow.
I wrote policy. I did what I called an e-risk review of one of the major health networks up there that had 12,000 staff. We were able to map everything from senior executives bullying each other online to attempted abductions of young nurses who were staying online that they had to walk to a certain train station because they couldn't afford to pay for parking at the hospital. So, all of that stuff was just pouring out. So I became very well
Right.
known for that very, very quickly. I
Hmm.
couldn't handle the workload by myself. And so I asked someone I used to work with many years before, who was a business analyst, to come and work with me. And they liked what I was doing so much that they asked if they could become a partner. And naively, I gave them half my company.
Mm.
And it was good until it wasn't. And then 4 years in, don't know to this day what set it off, but went completely from 0 to 100 when in Australia we have these the government pays an enormous amount of welfare compared to the US. Like Australian welfare is
Okay.
really, really high. You can,
Okay.
it's high compared to the rest of the world. And we have free health and all of those things.
Right.
We're a very wealthy country because of the resources there. So, natural resources. So,
Definitely.
we have all of these little businesses that if you do end up on an unemployment benefit, you go to these organizations and they'll help you find a job or they'll retrain you for a job. And there was one that asked me to speak about what I do because I do a lot of education for people to re-enter the workforce, knowing what they can and can't do online, how to align to a company's policy, and like the
Right.
full-blown thing that I call e-work ready. And so I was supposed to be talking about that at a conference, and the company advertised me as the director of our company, not the co-director, and it set my business partner off like a firecracker.
Ugh,
And it went from
man.
0 to 100 in about 5 minutes flat. So it went because I taught them about everything that I knew in this space.
Right.
They were hiding behind hashtags. So she started bullying me so badly online that I barely left the house for 3 months. I was 43 years old. I'm 54 now. Um, 43. Her favorite thing was hiding behind a particular hashtag. I was much larger back then. And so the hashtag that she used for me was referring to my weight as hashtag chips and chocolate. So she used to put things like horrible things on the daily. One day she posted a meme that said, if you could rid the world of one thing, what would it be? And she put underneath it easy hashtag chips and chocolate. And one of
Ugh.
I couldn't look anymore. It had been going on at this point for almost a year. And it got so
Wow.
bad at one point that I was literally where I lived in Australia, just outside of Byron, a place called Lennox Head. Massive headland. One of, unfortunately, those headlands with,
Hmm.
call this number if you're feeling bad at the top of the hill. I was sitting there.
Right.
I checked my life insurance policy. I was contemplating worst case because at this point, to be brutally honest, I was at the point where I would take anti-anxiety medication. I was
Hmm.
self-medicating with whiskey every single night, not drunk, but just enough to put me asleep. I was just a complete and utter mess. And I was sitting at the bottom of that hill that night thinking, this is a nightmare. I've got a really big life insurance policy. I could just leave and take all of this away from everybody that's now involved. Like, because she'd even pulled up in my parents' driveway and said, I know you're guarantor on her mortgage. I'm going to take her down. So you're going to go with her and you're going to lose everything. And my dear old dad, who's now passed, I'll never forget that he literally said to her, you can take everything. You're not taking my daughter. And
Wow.
he
Oh,
was very strong like that. And anyway, it got to that point, and my son texted me and said, "Mum, what's for dinner?" And I went home and I started Safe on Social at 3 o'clock the next morning because I had another sleepless night. And
yeah.
this meme kept coming up. And when she posted that meme and said hashtag chips and chocolate underneath it, because I couldn't look anymore, I was blocking it everywhere. I had a couple of friends of mine that were monitoring everything that knew her but didn't know her well.
Right.
And the Instagram account of hers was very public because everyone's was back then.
Right.
And
Yeah, there
so
wasn't regulation on it.
that's right. So when she posted this to Instagram, she'd also posted it to Facebook. And one of my friends wrote underneath, what does chips and chocolate mean? And her mother, who was in her late 70s at the time, wrote underneath it, a lying fourth generation fat cow from Byron Bay that deserves to be dead. And with that,
No.
I took that to one of the local courts. In Australia, we have something called an apprehended violence order that you can take out
Hmm.
against someone. There's a domestic violence order, and then the apprehended is when you don't have a personal relationship or it's that sort of thing.
Okay. Right.
Um, so I went to the court to try and get some form of legal protection to stop this from happening, with finally having proof that she was talking about me or as near as I could to that.
Hmm.
And the judge called it journalistic and threw it out because it was on social media. That was in 2013. And so it took until 2021 to get laws in Australia that protect Australian adults from cyberbullying. And a lot of the world doesn't have that still. But, we all worked very, very hard to get that put in place. But so with that, off the back of a lot, it's a long story, unfortunately for you. But
Right. That's all right. Thank you for
the
sharing.
what I did, because we were in court, she was threatening me with all sorts of things that I didn't quite understand at the time. And now, if I had my time back, I knew it was just threats and there was nothing that she could do. And I hadn't done
Yeah.
anything wrong. So it was all like a law degree in box. But
Yeah.
when I started Safe on Social that morning at 3 o'clock in the morning on March 15, 2013, I remember it like it was yesterday. Um,
Hmm.
I had $68 left to my name. I had registered the URL because I'm sitting there going, what do I do? I keep people safe on social media. And I went, safeonsocial.com, and it was available. And so I bought that with
Yeah.
$15. I registered the business name in New South Wales. That cost me another 32. So I had about $21 left to my name to feed my son, my two dogs, put fuel in the car, do all of the things until I got some work, because I was just too exhausted to advise the government anymore. There was all sorts of
Yeah.
threats of injunctions. Anyway, so I turned up I rang the local high school and I said, this is what I do. Do you want me to come and talk to the students? And he said no. And I went, my stomach sort of turned, and
Ah, ah.
then in the next breath he said, so this is the principal of the high school, and the next breath he said, but we've had someone just pull out, one of the speakers of the North Coast Principals Conference, and if you want to come and talk to that group of principals in 2 weeks' time, we'll see what happens from there. And so I did, and I'd been so unwell, I'd been so stressed, I ended up having to use a wheelchair for a year. And I had,
Oh
in
my.
this particular photo that I have of that very first presentation, I have a plaster cast up to my knee because they thought I'd torn my Achilles, when it was actually an onset of autoimmune arthritis from all of the trauma, which you can see in my hands quite clearly here. But it
Right.
it that presentation There was 24 principals there. Within a week, 21 of them had booked me, and I've never picked up the phone for work since.
Oh, let's. Oh, are you kidding me? Oh my goodness. What a
No.
story.
So it
What a
just went,
story.
it went crazy, absolutely crazy. And as you now know, I have offices and people like facilitators all over Australia. I'm based in Florence, Italy. I have an office in New York and one in London as well. Like the call before
Hmm.
this, I was just working with the client in the US. So it went completely bonkers, absolutely bonkers, and it changes every day. And I'm still as passionate about what I do to help people as I was back then, because all I could think of was this: if this can affect me the way it did when I had been one of those hard ass maiden corporate tough as nails chick, and this broke me into a million pieces, and I was 43. What if I'd been 12? Is all I could think of.
Oh
And
man.
I was like, this is not okay. Something needs to change. And so I've been doing that ever since. But it was like, it was a great big reality check. In fact, every presentation I ever give, I show a photo of myself at 13 saying she wouldn't have handled this. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
we
And
forget that. And we need to think about what we were like at 13 and how different it would be if you were connected 24/7.
right. Especially without confidence in yourself, without personal agency, without resources, without feeling like you can speak up because you are such a at such a young age, and people view you as just a child, right?
Without
That
any concept of self regulation, with having your
none.
self esteem systematically dismantled on a daily basis, whether it be playing Roblox or somebody's judged what you were at school or whatever.
Right. And not only that, first of all, thank you for sharing that story. I'm so sorry that you had to experience that, but
Oh,
at the
don't
same
be.
time,
It
but
made
when
me a
it
better
came from
person.
this, yeah,
It
exactly. I
made me,
said this came from it. So you know what? Like if that was what was worth it, I'd say we'd take it any day,
yeah,
to make it to this point, right?
I've always said if I ever won the lottery, I'd buy myself a super yacht and call it hashtag chips and chocolate.
Hashtag chips and chocolate. There it is. What a
So,
wonderful way to turn that around. You
anyway,
know, you touch on cyberbullying, which is something I wanted to talk about as well. It is massive, absolutely massive. We talked about the anonymity that people can face now behind a keyboard. You spoke the way that she was able to use a hashtag to bully you, and anyone in the world can take a hashtag and run with it. And one post that one person likes or a hashtag can become a viral sensation overnight that suddenly everybody is using. I did an episode on this young woman. Her name was Adriana Cush, and she was cyberbullied by girls in her school who recorded an embarrassing incident of her on either Snapchat, I believe it was, or Instagram. And they repeatedly sent her the video and sent it to everyone in school and absolutely bullied her and her, it absolutely ruined her to the point where she had no hope and unfortunately took her own life.
mm,
And every time I hear about this, I think of how needless, how senseless, right? How absolutely pointless all of that seems to be, to feel the need to bully someone to that point, right? Like I don't understand. I just can't understand why anyone would do it, but it's become an epidemic. Cyberbullying has become an epidemic, not just with youth, but with adults. It seems every day cyberbullying claims another victim, right? I read what was the statistic? It seems that now it's up to every like 8 minutes. Cyberbullying claims another victim, and I just it's absolutely heartbreaking, right? You don't hear about it as much. Maybe every now and then a story gets kicked up in the news. I read a story about a young man, and these algorithms, by the way, as you know, they're not designed to protect us.
no,
They're designed to attack and exploit our weaknesses, and
100%.
and especially with children, and they don't stop. even after their job is done. There was a another young man I had read about, an article where his mom had opened his TikTok 1 year after he had taken his life, and the algorithm was still pushing him videos that glorified suicide, glorified depression, videos telling him he's not enough, videos comparing him to other people, and the account hadn't even been active for a year.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, these algorithms are designed to have maximum effectiveness against us in ways that the human psyche isn't meant to deal with this bombardment of colors and pictures and sound and videos and information. Um, you
And
know,
people. The human brain's only
yes,
wired to manage 150 relationships. Anything beyond that needs devices and things like that. It's impossible. And then we try and keep up with everything. And if you're a child, one of the questions I always ask the kids in my sessions is who's in a group chat? The whole room puts their hand up. Who's woken up to 400 plus messages in the group chat? The whole room puts their hand up. Who's woken up to photos of the ceiling, the floor, someone's foot, and someone's half eaten burger? The whole room puts their hands up, cracking up laughing. But then I also ask them, who wakes up and the first thing in the morning they do is pick up their phone and scroll through to see if they were mentioned in the group chat overnight and literally have given themselves a healthy dose of anxiety for breakfast because they can't self regulate. They
right,
cannot. It is
right,
absolutely impossible for a child to self regulate. Every case of bullying, and I had an hour-long Zoom call with a mother this morning whose daughter's being bullied. All of those things that I speak to people on the daily about every single time is, but she can't help but look. And I said, I couldn't help looking, and I was 43
right, right.
because that's what it's designed for.
Exactly. That's the intention. That's the whole purpose
Eyeballs
behind
on
this.
screens is what makes money. And so with the kids, with the group chats, I'm always saying, who's seen those little grey dots that go back and forward across the screen like this? And you think your friend's about to send you a message, and they'll go, and I said, who's been worried when it's all of a sudden just stopped? And you go, where did they go? And they go, oh, me, like this. You see all the hands go up like that. And I said, you do realize that's just the app. It's not your friend. Your friend's probably in the shower and the app's trying to keep your eyeballs on it for as long as possible. And literally, their faces, they're all looking at each other going, what? What? They just, no concept of how it works. And that's what we're not teaching in digital literacy. It's how this stuff works. And you can be an ex police officer and you can be a psychologist or a teacher or whoever. But unless you really understand how the technology works, that's where this digital literacy around social media education is consistently falling over because you have to understand how the tech works in the
Right.
background to make
Well,
sure that,
and
and then kids engage with it because they love hearing about it.
yeah, of course. Well, and that we're all hungry for knowledge, right? We all crave knowledge. We're all curious about life and the world and the things around us by nature. But not almost having access to education causes us to not seek it.
That's right. That's
So
exactly
I'm
right.
I'm really hoping, and we'll move to this is the because this is the big one, and it's so funny, right? So I have to tell you this: the way that I came across you was the CNN article that they put out. And I had woken up, was it 2 weeks ago? I can't remember. I think it was 2 weeks ago I reached out. And every Monday I do a live show. I go in studio and I do a live show. And I didn't have a topic that day. And I was like, well, something will find me, right? And like somehow that article, that CNN article floated across my timeline. And I thought, you're kidding me. And I jumped on it immediately and I read everything and consumed it. And I just was like, it wasn't even, I was so, I needed to know more so much that I just was like, she's got to be on Instagram. And typed it up and boom, there you were, sent a message and was like, I am so curious to know more. The world needs to know about this. We've got to talk about the ban heard around the world that Australia just put into effect that you helped spearhead. What is the exact bill
Mm-hmm.
that went through?
So the bill is that social media will be banned for children under the age of 16 by the end of next year in Australia, early 2026. Now,
Okay.
immediately that gets all sorts of things. Kids will work around it, da, 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 da. And there's been a whole
Yes.
heap of people in Australia being, like, I'm known for my frankness. There's a whole lot of people that are cyber safety educators, academics, and a whole heap of people that are really compromised, that are very anti-ban, but they're also being paid by big tech or have been in the past, whether it's through
Hmm.
donations or something like that. So there's a bit of unconscious bias going on there as well. So like that's why
Always, right?
I've always proudly stood up and said, no, we don't get in bed with anybody that's trying to harm children. It's like being paid by a pedophile, to be honest, to be really, really blunt. That's what's
Right.
happening here. So I was very anti-ban at the beginning because I was like, well, the workarounds, I work a lot in Hong Kong. The Chinese government can't get kids in Hong Kong to stop using VPNs. So if the Chinese government can't do it, we won't be able to do it. So this is just a great big waste of time and money. And yeah, nah. And then I had an incident, which was the CNN article where you would have seen me
Ooh, ooh.
blubbering into my phone where I had, it's the first time that I've ever in the history of me speaking in schools. I started work at 10 past 8 in the morning, presenting to a group of year 7 and 8, which in Australia would be 12 and 13 years old.
Okay.
And by 8:35, I put my microphone down and walked out because the behavior was so appalling. I couldn't deal with it. I burst into tears and left the room. I'm like, I literally
Wow.
sobbed in front of 350 children saying, I'm just here to help you. And the disrespect, I can't. And I just left. And
Oh,
it was a group of boys in the middle that were quite clearly influenced by a very well known, very misogynistic influencer. The hand signals, the language directed at every female that was on the screen whenever I put a PowerPoint slide up. Um, the look, the thing that triggered me the most was all the little girls in the room. They were sitting there with their legs crossed and their arms around their backpacks, and a couple of LGBT kids. You could tell they were really scared that if they
yeah.
got in the firing line, it'd be on. So they were just saying nothing. So that was that experience. And when that
Oh.
happened, and I could see that this was directly related to social media influencers, because I could tell exactly who they were being influenced by,
Hmm.
I then looked at, I've done more than 400 now e-risk reviews of schools and businesses all around Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong. And I could see just by analysing that data the decline in behaviour as kids
Hmm.
getting access to apps younger and younger and younger, because they get their first devices younger and they only want a device so they can get TikTok because, of course, they're the only kid in the whole year group that doesn't have TikTok and you're a bad parent. Da, 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 da. Goes on.
Blah, 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 blah. Yeah,
Anyway,
exactly.
so I
We
thought
know the story.
yeah, if this gives one parent the opportunity to say, sorry, buddy, it's illegal until you're 16, that can only be a good thing. And so
Yes.
I publicly backflipped and said, no, I made a mistake. I am absolutely 100% hand on my heart pro ban. And here is an argument to every single argument that I've heard that is anti. And I went through it meticulously. Digital ID. They're going to store all of our identification. Well, the government's got that covered, because if an app forces somebody because the age verification doesn't quite work and someone has to upload a document to prove their age, the Australian government has made it that they will be fined 50 million Australian dollars. That's about 32 million US. They will be fined 50 million Australian dollars if they store that digital ID and don't destroy it. So there's
Wow.
that. If they haven't made their best attempt at stopping people under the age of 16 accessing the app, excuse me, they'll be fined another 50 million. So they've really stepped it up. So even though it's only across 6 of the major apps so far, like
So far.
I'm pushing for a lot more, but it doesn't cover porn, so they can still access
Mm,
that. But most of that is gateway through social media anyway, because it's shared through
right.
group chats and things.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, but it covers X, it covers TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram, and Reddit are the 6
Oh, yes.
in
Reddit, one most
Australia.
people wouldn't think about. That's like big
That's
time
right.
adult social media. Big
Totally.
time. Reddit is a big, big violator. I am on it. That is where I get most of my news. If I would say the social media I spend most of my time on, it is Reddit, simply because as an adult, I can keep track of what's around me. But even that, you fall yourself into just looking at the comments, and there's a subreddit for everything, which is horrific.
Everything.
Horrific.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So, whilst it's not a silver bullet, what people don't realize, yes, your average 14 or 15-year-old now knows how to use a VPN and will bypass it. Absolutely. Absolutely, that will happen. But a child that's under 10 or 11 won't be
Mhm.
able to, because their parents can confidently say it's legal, okay, and get away with it for a few more years. So we've got another generation through that we could potentially save here, for want of a better term.
Yes.
When it comes to digital literacy, well, no child that I've ever encountered in the history of my career has learnt digital literacy from TikTok or Snapchat. They just put that down, okay?
Yeah.
You can
Yep.
sit down with that one.
Yep.
Marginalised youth. There's all sorts of amazing spaces online for LGBT kids, for rural and remote kids to connect in a safe way. Okay. So there's
Hmm.
all of those things. There's no argument that overrides a child's right to safety. Even the UN Convention of the Child's Rights to using digital technology and things like that. There's also another one that is a child's right to safety and privacy. Okay? And they do
Hmm.
not cancel each other out. Sorry.
Right.
So we need to make sure that we understand what we're actually talking about. So then, what I believe has been the best thing from the ban is that it is such a massive disruptor. It has instantly disrupted the whole world, that they're like, all of a sudden, I'm having conversations that I wish people had been having with me over the last 17 years. They've just been
Yep.
amplified because of the potential ban. So, parents asking questions: what's a VPN? How does the VPN work? What's this? Should I have
Mm.
that? What's Roblox? No, Roblox isn't just a game. It's 40 million games within a game. And this is what you need to understand. And this is what the Fediverse is. And this is the metaverse. And it goes on. So it's been this massive disruptor, which I've now been contacted. I've done media in Japan, in Spain, in all of these places that are watching and going, right, we're like Australia. We have zero effect on American law because
Yeah.
of Section 230 being such a protector of freedom of speech, of all of
Yep.
those things. A lot of Australian kids even think that we have freedom of speech in Australia. We don't. Australia doesn't have freedom of speech.
Wow.
We have freedom of political communication. So you can say anything about the government and not get put in jail, but there is no perceived freedom of speech. You do not have it. We have online hate laws, we have online racism laws, we have national security and counterterrorism, all of those things. Any of that online, you're in jail in Australia. So it's very, very different. So it has thrown down the gauntlet. It has opened up a global conversation that needed to be happening, because countries like Australia and Japan and stuff like that, Australia has a population less than California on a
Right.
piece of dirt that is the same size as North America. Okay, so it's like when we're a mosquito that you can
Right.
swap away because of the no effect on American law, but our own
Hmm.
law is making the rest of the world speak, and the rest of the world coming together and going, well, if they can do it, we can do it. Maybe if we all do it, we can make a difference. And that's what's important.
Yes, and all it takes is one. Oftentimes, you just, with these large movements, with anything that's ever been accomplished ever, right? It always takes one person or one group or one organization to start, to be the first, and then everybody else kind of looks around and goes, "Oh yeah, we you can do that? Okay, well, why don't we do that? Why are we not doing that? We should be doing that." And I think, um, I really think. We're in this age, this new age of enlightenment that we're entering, right, with around the internet and everything, that people are starting to wake up to the fact that, wait a minute, these companies don't have our best interests at heart. This stuff is damaging. Nobody's regulating it. People are suffering. People are dying. All of this other stuff. And you know what? We need to take the power back and put it
That's
in
right.
put the ball in our court. Because if we don't, they're going to dictate the future of us. And the children who are our future are the ones who need the protections. And so it falls on us as adults to be the sword and the shield and say, okay, well, you don't know what you need, but we can see it where it comes from, and we're going to cut it off at the past,
Exactly.
and really do it. I just I have so much love and compassion and support for that because I was just in this very uh, I would say wealthy establishment, right? So it's a 1% kind of, billionaires go to eat there every now and then and things like that. And I was in this room having a, big meal with a group, and I was looking around, right? And I noticed one common theme. Wherever there was a family, wherever there was a table, the adults were all sitting here engaging with each other, having conversations, and all of the children were plopped down with screens bigger than their head in front of them, absolutely just watching their brains turn to goo. And I thought, who's going to inherit all this money?
Yeah.
Who's going to inherit all these decisions that need to be made? The children who've been sitting in front of screens, who haven't been given the tools and the same chance that we were given, because, it was like with the invention of the television. It
Yeah.
gave parents a break. And I understand every now and listen, I get it sometimes you feel like you need a break or whatever. My grandmother who raised me uh gave me television time myself. Would she'd already raised four kids. So for me to sit down in front of a TV, at least she knew where I was and she could keep track of me. But I am still dealing with the residual effects of that screen addiction as an adult. Yeah.
Guess who can't go to sleep unless the television's on?
Oh, you too. I need
Huh?
white noise. Yeah, I need
My
some kind of background noise. Yeah.
That's right. My grandmother used to let me fall asleep on the couch in front of the TV every single night that I ever stayed there. And it's
Oh,
such a habit now. My partner he calls it the little telly because I go to bed with my iPad and literally you turn it on. Like if we go to bed at the same time, he works a lot in the Emirates, so the time changes that we
hmm.
work in are kind of radical. I start work at 4 o'clock in the morning. He's up until late, and so if we go to
Right.
bed at the same time and watch Mad Men or something like that, literally 3 minutes, and I'm out cold, gone, sound
Yeah.
asleep.
Yeah, for me it's the Great British Bake Off that gets me every time, no, without fail. I just can't help it. Something about Prue's voice that just soothes me to sleep.
We all have it, but that's the thing. I say to parents often who freak out about screen time and gaming and things like that, that we have all, as parents, had that Saturday afternoon where you literally want your child to game on the PlayStation for 27,000 hours straight. It's like, just give me a moment, and that is
Right.
okay. You know,
Yes.
if it's not every day, it's okay. If a child's watching a television, they're more likely to go into their bedroom and get a toy and interact with it. Where if they're
Hmm.
holding an iPad, they don't have that ability to do that. And we're seeing
Ah.
fine motor skills disintegrating, all sorts of behavioural things. There was a stat that came out of the UK a couple of weeks ago that said 27% of UK kids between the age of 3 and 4 have their own phone. There's a lot of prams now that hold phones, so a child can be like
Yes.
looking at the phone
Yes.
like that.
Oh,
It's doing huge amounts of damage because the big thing is, I'm, as I said, I'm 54 years old. I'm possibly the last generation that can remember a life before this kind of technology. Like, I remember getting a color television. I remember fighting with my father on a Sunday night because I wanted to watch Countdown, the Australian music show, where he wanted to watch the NRL, which is Australian football. And,
right, right.
we had one television, there was two channels, and that was it. You know,
Yes. Right.
you had to adapt. You were forced to be bored. How often do you hear kids say, I'm bored now?
You don't.
And so, therefore, their
You
mind
don't.
doesn't wander. And we're losing innovation and we're losing big ideas and stuff like that. And whilst technology does stimulate some of those, it's really healthy for the mind to wander. We need that
Hmm.
one wander and wander, if you know what I mean. Wander and
Yes, I
wander.
do.
It's very
Yeah.
difficult to say that with a thick Australian accent, but one
But
with an O and one with an A.
right,
We
but
need
I
both.
got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. We really do. We do need both. Now, is you spoke to digital literacy, which
Yes.
is beautiful. Now, I would imagine Safe on Social has lots and lots of resources available for that, which we'll get to. So, with this ban, does there also come a digital literacy component to it from the Australian government that and they say we're going to ban it, but we're also going to educate the parents and the youth and put information out there so that you understand why we do this, so that we can maybe take the power from just the government, right, and individualize it and empower adults in their own homes with their own agency to have these conversations with their children and sit down and say, hey, listen, this is the reason we want to do it. And I know you want to be mad at me or this and that or whatever. But as your parent, right, it's important for both of us that we do this, and then parents can form groups. And is there an equal amount of information coming out with the ban to that people like maybe me in California or friends of mine in New York or my friends in Paris could look up now and download to consume to spread to their friends and family to help share this?
Well, that's been around for a very long time. So this has been the thing. One of the other things that the people that are anti-ban are saying is that we just need more education. Well, that's been around for free through the governments and things like that for 17 years now, and people just don't. You know what I think it is? Like,
What's that?
I have a whole stack of education that people
Yeah,
can access, but it's not free, and it's not free for a reason because there's more value when you buy something, and
yeah,
buying something for a small amount of money enables me to spend an hour with mum this morning for nothing. You know what I mean? So it's that
yes.
cycle that we need to be involved in. And what I find also is that when something is produced by the government or someone that's backed by big tech or taking donations from everyone from, Bill and Melinda Gates through to Google to whatever, there's some bias in it. And when you get the really
Always.
unbiased stuff, we've got to pay people to do a whole lot of research and stuff that is unbiased and things like that. And it's kept up to date very, much more consistently than just writing it once and saying that'll do for that. So there's
Right.
different types of education out there. There's different types of digital literacy. So, I make videos that go in every single week. There's new stuff happening all the time. Everything that comes
Hmm.
up that I talk about, where, from a police force or something like that, they might have some data sheets on how Snapchat works. So it's very
Yeah.
nuanced. So there is things available. It depends
Hmm.
on, whether you want to pay $5 or you want a free version, um,
Yeah.
as to what you get. So it's knowing what's working for you as a family and, of course, budgets and all of those things. But You don't need to consume it all. Like a lot of parents think, oh, I need to read all of these books and I need to do this and I need to do that because everybody else said
Yes.
this. No, you don't. It's like treat it like your grandmother would have had them. Remember those old recipe cards that used to come in a plastic container that they'd go through?
Oh, yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
And you pull
Yes.
out what you need when you needed it and you didn't have to go through the whole book looking for it. It's that.
Yes.
So otherwise, you would literally, I always say, if people knew what I knew, they'd be in the corner sucking their thumb. You know, it's
Yes.
the stuff that I
Yes.
deal with, you would be rocking in the corner sucking your thumb. So when you read something or you need a resource for something, invest in a library for yourself that you download and you only take what you need. Otherwise, it's like eating an elephant with a teaspoon. You just, yeah,
Yeah.
not going to happen.
Yeah. It's not going to happen. So to that end, what are some resources that or tools that you could offer to any listeners if someone wanted to, after they're done watching this, hop off and go educate themselves on something?
Oh
What would you
God, I
offer for
feel
that?
like doing a sales pitch and I hate doing that.
And so, no, really though, listen, it's very important for me that people get a chance to find you as well, because I really believe in the work that you're doing, and it's one of those things where as new things pop up, we've got to have new champions in the fields, right, for these different types of things, and I have an endless amount of gratitude for that, and it allows people to be curious on their own. Instead of saying, no, you need to learn this, saying, listen, we've got this here. And whenever you want to educate yourself on it, please feel free. Knowledge is
Yeah,
power.
we have a couple of different things. So in
Hmm.
the resource section or the online shop section of Safe on Social, there's a couple of online courses, but we also have a parent library, one for schools and businesses. So
Hmm.
within those, the parent library has a whole stack of resources, learning packs and things for kids, videos from me, all of those things for at the moment. It's like until December 1, till January 1, it's only 49 Australian dollars. So what's that? Not even 20 US dollars for a whole year. And then,
The cost of Netflix monthly
yeah,
is 10 times that. So if you can afford to pay for every streaming service under the sun, you can afford
that's right.
education.
And they're
Mhm.
constantly updated. So it has more than 150 cheat sheets in it. It has all sorts of videos, all sorts of things. So that is usually 250 a year. So it's only 50 up until, oh, that's Australian dollars again, up until the beginning of 2025. And
Okay.
then we also have the schools version of that, which has lesson plans, everything from there's 16 units for primary school, 16 units for high school, everything from AI and sustainability right through to, you know, what is FOMO, JOMO, and FONS, all of those kinds of things to educate kids in
Yeah.
digital literacy on the things that they enjoy. And it's a bit of a choose your own adventure. So you can take, again, what you need and fit it into the school's curriculum or syllabus. And that has stuff that's updated all the time. I also do a big coaching program. So I
Okay.
train people to be me, which is something that
Oh.
I do quite often now for people that are wanting to do this kind of work for themselves as their own business, or they work in a school and they want to be the champion of it in that
Hmm.
school or in a business. And then, of course, we have on site talks, or I do a lot via Zoom. As you can tell, I can talk a lot about this. So it
Yeah.
doesn't really matter whether it's online or it's face to face, but I do both. Yeah. So that's all on the
Amazing.
Safe on Social site.
Yes. Any other websites or social media that you
Facebook.
have?
Our,
Yeah.
our Facebook page is constantly updated with what's going on out there.
Okay.
So, you know, that's a good one. That's just Safe on Social again.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm not good at promoting myself. I'm a
That's all right. That's it. Listen, I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to bring that out. Really,
That's very
it's
kind. Thank
very
you.
it's very very important, and To that, and to anyone listening, really, please go give her a look. Go check out Safe on Social. The education is there. Anything that you need, that aspect, anything you're looking for, you have the opportunity to take the power back in your own life at any moment. You know, we live in a world right now where a lot of times you can feel helpless to the power of the internet. You feel helpless to the algorithms and this and that. But just know and understand that at any moment, you are the creator of your own life, and you can take that power and agency and do whatever you choose with it. And the world that you live in can look and feel any way that you want it to at any moment, you know?
That's right. And start by
Absolutely.
curating your feed to reflect that. Follow
Right.
things,
Oh,
follow things that inspire you, make you happy. You don't have to follow things just because everybody else is. You don't
yeah.
like I had a whole stack of stuff coming through my feeds around all of the atrocities that are happening in the Middle East, and
Hmm.
I, I literally sat on the couch on a rainy Saturday afternoon and for 2 hours straight looked up cute dog videos on every single platform that I use. And so literally overrode the algorithm. So all I get now is
Yeah.
goats, dogs, to the point it drives my partner bonkers because guess what happens every time I see one? Forward, forward,
Yes. I was gonna say his inbox is flooded,
forward.
isn't it? Here, you need one of these. Here's another one.
That's right. That's right.
Incredible. I'm also very big on that as well. Curating your feed, right? Understanding that there is content now. There is something called rage bait content. People
Yeah.
don't really understand the depths of this. There are people making content out there that is meant to incite emotion from you, anger or sadness or just something that makes you want to respond and kind of, I always say this, vomit out bad energy of your own, right? It wants to pull it up from you and get you to spew it out because now it's all over you. And now that's why you're going to go out into the world and you're going to carry all that bad energy about you. And what we don't realize is we're all walking around, covered in our own mess
Yeah.
and making it each other's problem. And so curating your feed to things that educate you, to things that help you and enlighten you and make you feel good, right? Whether it's videos of puppies or videos of people helping out those in need, or um, testimonials of people just being raw and honest and authentic with their lives and the things like that. That was actually why this show was started, is to give people a respite, right, from all of the chaos out there, to say, listen, if you come here to this page, you're either going to learn something, or you're going to hear something that inspires you, or you're going to feel something that makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Because there's enough places on the internet that are pockets of sadness and hurt and anger and depression. So taking agency for yourself, and we can all do this, right? This is something
Correct.
everyone can do. We all have a social media feed. So take the opportunity. If you see something that you don't like, rather than interacting with it, maybe unfollow the account. Maybe
That's
say,
right.
you know what? This is actually not a source, as what Marie Kondo would say. This one sparks joy, right?
That's
If
correct.
it doesn't spark joy, it can go. It's
Yep.
okay. It's okay. I promise you that. Not following what everybody else is following is only going to stoke your own sense of individualism, anyways. So.
100%.
Yes. Well, Kira, what's next for you? Are you working with other governments on this? Have you started to talk to other governments around the world yet? Has anyone reached out to do this? I'd imagine that now that Australia has made the move, there are others who are eager to learn and to try to implement something themselves.
There he is. I just finished a big article with a Spanish newspaper a couple of days ago
Hmm.
because Spain's looking at it. Being here in Europe, it's the laws are very different, and they've got a lot more advancement when it comes to data protection around children and what you can do. So I'm looking at a lot of that. What's next for me? I'm launching a new framework around bullying online that is like almost like a corporate social responsibility side of things, which is there's nothing like it out there. So
Yeah.
it's a game changer. I've got many years under my belt of watching how we could do this stuff better, and
Hmm.
I've figured out a way to do that. So I'll be launch. That's my focus. So I'm here for 6 weeks in the freezing cold, writing and polishing that off for a launch in early 2025. And then I head back to Australia to speak for 8 weeks straight,
Wonderful.
beginning of the
Wonderful.
school year.
Armed with a whole new curriculum to come and educate, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, wonderful. When that gets all finished and rolled out, it would be an absolute honor to have you back on the show
I
to
love
talk
that.
about it
Thank
more.
you.
Of course, to spread as much awareness around that as possible. Like I said when we started, I really believe in what you're doing, and I know that maybe the youth who it affects directly don't understand it, and they think it's a punishment, right? As often as children, when we're young, we think that when we don't get what we want, we're being punished, but really it couldn't be, and that couldn't be any further from the truth. It's to help save and empower the future generations who are going to inherit this planet, who we are going to need to turn this ship in the right direction and keep it going
Correct.
where a world we can all be proud of.
That's right. I'd be surprised how many kids I've spoken to in the last few weeks since the ban was announced that are actually pro ban.
Yes. Oh, I was going to ask that
But
before we go. Have you had a positive reaction from students since the ban has gone into effect?
100%, they all like I had an extraordinary experience. Australia, as you know, is a big country and not many
Mm-hmm.
people, and we tend to live along the coastline because most
Right.
of the country is desert. I'll turn my computer
Is-
slightly, and you can see that is the indigenous map of Australia behind me. So
wow. The bush, right? Don't they call it the
that's
bush?
all of this here is
Hmm.
totally uninhabitable. This is an
Wow.
indigenous map because Australia was made up of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of indigenous communities before white invasion. We'll call it what it was.
Hmm.
Um,
Right.
and it was never
Yeah.
ceded. So the Aboriginal people still own the land. Um, so I was working in a tiny, tiny, tiny little town that was like up about
Here we go.
here
Okay.
in like just on the on the edge of what you would have heard of in Crocodile Dundee called the Outback.
Okay. Okay. Got you. Got you.
Yeah, tiny
Yeah.
little town, tiny little school. There was a year 7, 8, and 9 class all in together, so about 300 kids. At the end of that session, year 9 sent their teacher to the front of the room and said, "Can you ask if we can stay and have a question and answer session with her?" And I was like, "What?" Blown away because that doesn't happen. And these kids, there was about 100 that sat there with me for an hour asking the most questions. And I'm like, God, if we had that everywhere, we're going to be okay. These kids were
Uh-huh.
amazing. The questions, everything from how much energy does ChatGPT consume compared to Google, um, through to like they were so interested in sustainability and how will we come up with answers for keeping all of this stuff cool, right through to asking me about how are we mapping counterterrorism based on heat maps on who's using AI, to them going one young man like full blown almost like Australian cowboy level, um,
Hmm.
it's like, I think the band's really good, miss. It's really valid, like this. And he said, because my little sister, he said, she won't have the same issues that I did. So it's like,
Oh,
it was just like one of those moments. It was really cool. And we're getting a lot of
from
that.
from the mouth of babes,
That's
right?
right.
The to any youth watching this, I wanted to say this: you are the future.
That's right.
Truly, the power to think, do, be, and say whatever you want is in your hands, and we are here. The generations before you are here to support you and fight for you and do whatever we can to make this journey that we are all on together as as easy as possible. right? To full of love, compassion, empathy, and trust within ourselves and each other. So, this is a sword of love, right? This comes through. This is all built around love. We're doing this out. You're doing this out of love. This interview, we're doing it out of love because we want to share awareness because we care, right? Because as people, we don't know what we don't know until you
That's right.
know it,
Exactly.
and having someone stand up and say it's okay, I do know, and let me help you, is it can change things just like that.
That's right.
So yes, well, Kira, I want to thank you so much for being here today. This
Such a
has been an
pleasure.
absolute pleasure. Yes, such a pleasure. My goodness, I will be definitely will be in touch. I will be following and watching everything that you've got going on. And when this new project is ready to roll out, please let me know, and we would be honored to have you back here to talk some more.
Thank you so much. Been great.
Absolutely. Well, my friends, want to remind you before we go, check her out. Safe on Social. There's safeonsocial.com. The website has an unbelievable amount of resources. I've been browsing it for the last 2 weeks. It's absolutely incredible. You can find them on social media, and anywhere that you're looking for your favorite things. And remember this, okay, that no matter where you are right now in the world and no matter what you've got going on, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, that you are enough and that you matter. And we love you. All right. So, here I want to say thank you again, and
Pleasure.
I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you for fighting this fight on behalf of all of us, and we're looking very much forward to talking to you again very soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Cheers.
See you.